Middle-earth, a land of great beauty and greater conflict. From small folk to ancient kingdoms, Middle-earth is the breeding ground for fantastical adventures and larger-than-life characters. This is the story of Middle-earth. A traveler from the south could pass a few days north of Bree, only to find that the road ended suddenly at a ruined wall. Great must have been the gates that once hung here, but he would find them desolate and in disarray. In the Third Age, this was a place of ill omen and local legend. Breelanders would not go near for fear of ghosts that lurked among the stones. Deadman's Dike, they called it. Only a few rangers would dare enter the site of the once proud city that stood empty and full of echoes of the past. At the beginning of the Second Age, there was no city here, only the Downs of the North. Then the men of the West came to Middle-earth, led by Elendil the Tall, first king of Arnor. He founded a vast kingdom, and the quiet hills came under his domain. Over time, the people of Arnor built many fortresses, cities, and villages across the kingdom. Among these was Fornost Arthedain. This location led to the construction of the Greenway, a highway that ran through the heart of Arthedain, past the Misty Mountains and straight into Gondor. The road also intersected the Great East Road a few days' march south of Fornost, making the city well situated for travel in all directions. With these advantages of location, Fornost grew in size and prospered. It was one of the strongest holds in Arnor, and stood in defense against many foes. When Arnor split during a power struggle in the Third Age, Fornost became prime choice for a new center of power for the smaller nation of Arthedain, and King Amlaeth moved his capital from Annúminas. The city that had enjoyed such prosperity and prominence was now the capital of the kingdom. However, times of prosperity and peace have their ends, especially in a war-torn land such as Middle-earth. And soon Arnor found itself on the brink of war. Over the years, Arthedain's neighboring allies to the south had diminished from plague and combat, and their neighboring kin in the east had become wild and reckless, led by evil hillmen that served dark forces in secret. In the north, the fell kingdom of Angmar was on the rise, led by a powerful sorcerer bent on bringing an end to the dynasties of the descendants of Elendil. A great war began along the border of Rhudaur and Arthedain, one that would last for many years and bring countless deaths. The armies of the Iron Crown of Angmar marched against Arthedain and decimated the border fortification of Amansul, a tower that watched the Great East Road. This victory gave them access to the heart of Arthedain. Though resistance continued for several generations of men, the Witch King of Angmar was relentless in his pursuit of the destruction of his enemies, and he brought his armies to the gates of their capital, assaulting the city of Fornost with a great host. Victory of evil over good was delayed for a time, as the elves of Lindon and Lothlorien under the command of Círdan and Elrond came to the aid of their allies. Together they repelled the Dark Wraith and his formidable horde. Fornost lived on, and the hardy people of Arthedain held out against the forces from the east for another 500 years, pressing back their advances and forcing a lengthy stalemate. They likely would have continued to hold for much longer if fate or foul sorcery had not intervened. A terrible sickness known as the Great Plague came up from the south and weakened the men of the north. Cardolan, Arthedain's neighbor to the south, was almost completely destroyed by the pestilence, and the people of Fornost surely suffered as well. If it was coincidence, it was a lucky one for Rhudaur and Angmar, but some say there was more to it than fate. Whatever the cause, it brought the defenses of Arthedain to its knees, and paved the way for its destruction. Arthedain had shrunk, but it would not go down without a fight. The kingdom held out for over a century after the disease had run its course. However, a Nazgul does not easily forgive, and he could afford to wait. No less determined to destroy his enemies in spite of his past defeat, the Lord of Angmar gathered his full strength and launched a devastating attack upon Fornost Arthedain. Arthedain called for aid to any willing to come to its defense. A great host of free peoples answered the summons and ventured north to meet the Witch King's armies upon the field of battle. Elves from many nations gathered, including Glorfindel, a lordly elf of great age and status. Men from Gondor came, led by King Ironor, as well as a small contingent of hobbit archers. However, Angmar attacked swiftly before the full forces of the Free Peoples could assemble. The city was overthrown and its gates cast down. All those living there either fled west or perished by sword and sorcery. In the final days of his kingdom, King Arthedain of Arthedain held the keep of his city, but was forced to flee against the insurmountable oppression of his assailants. Taking the Palantiri of Annúminas and Weathertop with him, he traveled north into the wilderness and hid for a time amongst the mines in the mountains. But he could not stay there long for fear of pursuers. He traveled into the icy land of Forakel and boarded a ship with the intention of breaking free. But nature, or perhaps a malevolent power, foiled his plan. A horrible storm swept into the bay before he was able to reach open water, and his boat was dashed upon the rocks. The last king of the north perished, and the 2 Palantiri were lost to the sea. Triumphant at last, the king of Angmar took the throne of Fornost for himself. However, his occupation of the fortress did not last long, for the elven army of Lindon and a Gondorian regiment from the south assailed him and slaughtered his soldiers. The Witch King fled northeast, seeking refuge in Angmar from where he had come, but his realm had suffered a fatal loss, and the Dark Realm would never again regain strength. In a single war, both Arthedain and Angmar came to an end. After the defeat of Angmar, Fornost was abandoned, and the city became nothing more than a dreadful place where the land had never healed from the numerous deaths that tainted it long ago. No one ventured to resettle there, and it was left to decay by all but the Rangers, descendants of the once great kingdom of Arnor. It remained so for many centuries until the dawn of the Fourth Age. Under the reign of Aragorn Elisar, king of the reunited kingdom, the city was rebuilt and was once again a place of light and hope, populated by a great people. Fornost was the great capital of Arthedain, but what of the older and grander capital of all of Arnor? Next, we will visit Annúminas, the great city founded by Elendil at the beginning of his reign.